Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now. The Philadelphia Phillies just sent shockwaves through Major League Baseball that registered on the Richter scale from Citizens Bank Park all the way to Citi Field. In what can only be described as the most electrifying front office power move of the entire offseason, the Phillies have officially locked down their beloved slugger Kyle Schwarber with a jaw-dropping 5-year contract worth a staggering $150 million. This isn't just another contract extension. This is a declaration of war on the rest of the National League East. This is Dave Dombrowski standing on top of the Liberty Bell with a megaphone screaming to the baseball world that the Phillies' championship window isn't just open, it's been blown completely off its hinges. The news broke early Tuesday morning like a thunderclap over the Delaware Valley, sending Phillies fans into an absolute frenzy of celebration while simultaneously crushing the souls of New York Mets supporters who had been salivating at the possibility of stealing away Philadelphia's heart and soul. The numbers are absolutely staggering when you break them down. We're talking about a commitment that averages $30 million per season, a figure that places Schwarber firmly among the elite designated hitters and power bats in the entire sport. But this contract represents so much more than just dollars and cents on a spreadsheet. This is about preserving the very DNA of a clubhouse that has become one of the tightest, most unified groups in all of baseball. Kyle Schwarber arrived in Philadelphia ahead of the 2022 season, and from his very first day in red pinstripes, he changed everything. The energy shifted, the mentality transformed. Suddenly, the Phillies had a player who could launch baseballs into orbit from the leadoff spot, a completely unconventional approach that became their signature calling card. Schwarber's ability to ignite rallies with one mighty swing of the bat turned traditional baseball strategy on its head and made the Phillies lineup one of the most dangerous in the National League. His presence in that leadoff position created a psychological advantage before the first pitch was even thrown. Opposing pitchers knew they couldn't afford a mistake, couldn't groove a fastball, couldn't leave anything over the middle of the plate because Schwarber would make them pay immediately and severely. But the numbers, as impressive as they are, only tell part of this incredible story. What makes this contract truly significant is what it represents for the culture and identity of this ball club. Bryce Harper, the face of the franchise and the reigning National League MVP, made his feelings crystal clear during an interview with MLB.com last season when he stated explicitly that walking into the clubhouse in 2026 without Kyle Schwarber would feel incredibly strange. Harper wasn't just making casual conversation or giving the standard diplomatic answer that players offer when asked about teammates potentially leaving. He was sending a message directly to the front office. He was drawing a line in the sand and saying that certain players are non-negotiable, that certain personalities are irreplaceable, and that Schwarber was absolutely at the top of that list. Harper went further, calling Schwarber a great leader and a great person in the community, someone you can build around for years to come. Those words carried immense weight and placed tremendous pressure on Dave Dombrowski and the entire Phillies front office to get this deal done, no matter what it took. When your franchise cornerstone, the player you built everything around with his own historic contract, tells you publicly that another player is essential to the team's success and chemistry, you don't ignore that message. You don't try to lowball the negotiations or play hardball, hoping the player will accept less money to stay. You open the checkbook, you recognize the value that transcends traditional statistics, and you do whatever it takes to keep that player in your uniform. The Phillies front office deserves enormous credit for reading the situation perfectly and acting with the kind of decisiveness that championship organizations must demonstrate. In today's hyper-competitive free agent market, where teams can be outbid at any moment and where social media allows rumors to spread like wildfire, the Phillies moved quickly and aggressively to shut down any possibility of Schwarber testing the open market. They understood that once a player of Schwarber's caliber and importance starts meeting with other teams, starts hearing pitches from other organizations, and starts envisioning himself in a different uniform, the dynamics can shift rapidly and unpredictably. By striking early and striking hard with a massive 5-year offer, the Phillies eliminated that risk entirely. The structure of this contract tells us everything we need to know about how the organization views their competitive window. 5 years is a serious commitment, one that will carry Schwarber through his age 36 season. Some analysts might look at that timeline and express concern about the back end of the deal, wondering if Schwarber's power numbers will decline as he enters his mid-30s, questioning whether the designated hitter role will allow him to remain productive enough to justify $30 million annually. But those concerns, while understandable from a purely analytical standpoint, miss the bigger picture entirely. The Phillies aren't paying for what Schwarber might be in 2029. They're paying for what he is right now and what he represents to this team's championship aspirations over the next several seasons. Kyle Schwarber is a World Series champion who has been there and done that, who knows what it takes to win in October when the pressure reaches its absolute peak. He's a Silver Slugger Award winner who has consistently produced 40-plus home runs season after season. He's a player who changes the geometry of the entire game with one swing of the bat, who can turn a pitcher's mistake into a 3-run deficit in the blink of an eye, who makes opposing managers lose sleep game planning how to navigate through the Phillies' murderous lineup. The value of having that kind of presence in your clubhouse, in your batting order, and in your community cannot be overstated or quantified by traditional metrics alone. Now let's dive into the absolute chaos that was happening behind the scenes during these negotiations, because this is where the story transforms from a simple contract extension into an epic battle for National League East supremacy. According to multiple trusted sources, including MLB insider Michael Marino, the New York Mets were not sitting idly by watching this unfold. Steve Cohen and his deep-pocketed organization came charging into the mix with a serious offer designed to steal Schwarber away from Philadelphia and deal a devastating blow to their division rivals. The Mets reportedly submitted a formal proposal worth 3 years and $120 million, an offer that would have paid Schwarber a mind-boggling $40 million per season. Let those numbers sink in for a moment. The Mets were willing to make Kyle Schwarber one of the highest-paid players in baseball on an annual basis, offering him a shorter commitment but significantly more money per year than the Phillies' proposal. This wasn't some half-hearted attempt or token offer designed to save face. This was Steve Cohen flexing his financial muscles and trying to inflict maximum damage on a divisional opponent while simultaneously addressing the Mets' desperate need for a power-hitting designated hitter. The Mets have been searching for that missing piece to anchor their lineup, and Schwarber fit their needs absolutely perfectly. A left-handed power bat who could protect their young star Francisco Lindor, provide veteran leadership, and most importantly, weaken their biggest threat in the division all in one move. The fact that the Phillies were able to win this bidding war despite offering less money per season speaks volumes about the organization's appeal and Schwarber's personal priorities. The Phillies' winning formula came down to one crucial element that the Mets either couldn't or wouldn't match, and that was the 5th year. By extending the contract to 5 years instead of 3, the Phillies provided Schwarber with the long-term security that players value enormously, especially as they enter their 30s. That extra guaranteed money, even at a lower annual salary, represented $51 million more in Schwarber's pocket over the life of the deal. It showed Schwarber that the Phillies view him as a cornerstone piece for the long haul, not just a short-term rental or stopgap solution. But beyond the pure mathematics of guaranteed money, this decision reveals something deeper about Kyle Schwarber's character and what he values as a professional athlete. He could have taken the Mets' offer and made an extra $10 million per year for 3 seasons. He could have signed with New York, played in the biggest media market in the world, and cashed bigger checks annually than what Philadelphia offered. Instead, he chose loyalty. He chose the relationships he's built with his teammates. He chose the city that embraced him from day one. He chose the fan base that chants his name every single time he steps to the plate. He chose to stay where he's happy, where he's valued not just as a player, but as a person and a leader, where he knows he has a legitimate chance to win a World Series championship. This decision absolutely devastates the Mets' offseason plans and leaves them scrambling to find alternative solutions. New York entered the winter with designated hitter as one of their top priorities, and they were clearly willing to spend whatever it took to land an elite option. Now they're forced back to the drawing board with most of the premier free agents already off the board or close to signing elsewhere. The Mets will likely have to pivot to the trade market or settle for a significantly lesser option, neither of which is ideal when you're trying to compete with the Phillies, Braves, and Nationals in what has become the most competitive division in baseball. Meanwhile, the Phillies can sit back, relax, and focus their remaining resources on addressing other needs like bullpen depth or rotation stability, knowing that the heart of their lineup is completely locked down. The strategic implications of this move extend far beyond just one player or one contract. The Phillies have essentially thrown down the gauntlet and declared that they are the team to beat in the National League East for the foreseeable future. They're not rebuilding, they're not retooling, they're not taking a step back to reassess or reset their competitive timeline. They're going all in on this core group of players, betting that the combination of Harper, Schwarber, Trea Turner, JT Realmuto, and their young stars like Bryson Stott and Alec Boehm gives them the best chance to compete for championships year after year. This is exactly the kind of bold, aggressive move that championship-caliber organizations make when they sense their window of opportunity is at its widest point. Dave Dombrowski has built his Hall of Fame reputation on these types of win-now decisions, and this Schwarber contract perfectly exemplifies his philosophy. Dombrowski doesn't care about flexibility 5 years from now or maintaining payroll space for hypothetical future needs. He cares about winning championships with the roster he has right now, and he's willing to make massive financial commitments to maximize that opportunity. Some general managers might have hesitated, might have tried to negotiate a shorter deal or lower annual value, might have worried about luxury tax implications or long-term budget constraints. Dombrowski saw what needed to be done, recognized the threat posed by the Mets' offer, and obliterated that competition by adding those 2 extra years that New York wouldn't commit to. The timing of this announcement also deserves attention because it sends ripples throughout the entire free agent market. By locking up Schwarber before the winter meetings could really heat up, the Phillies have removed one of the most desirable power bats from the available talent pool. This forces other teams who are targeting Schwarber to pivot to alternative options, which creates a domino effect across the entire market. Players who were considered secondary options suddenly become more valuable because the top tier has gotten thinner. The Phillies have essentially raised the cost for everyone else while securing their own needs, a masterful piece of market manipulation that demonstrates sophisticated front office thinking. From a pure baseball analytics perspective, Schwarber's production justifies this investment completely. Over the past 3 seasons in Philadelphia, he has been remarkably consistent in delivering elite power numbers. His ability to hit 40-plus home runs annually from the leadoff position is virtually unprecedented in modern baseball history. Traditional baseball wisdom suggested that you wanted contact-oriented, high-on-base percentage speedsters leading off, players who could get on base and come around to score. Schwarber completely obliterated that conventional thinking by proving that having a player who can hit the ball out of the ballpark at any moment creates just as much offensive value, if not more, than the traditional leadoff archetype. The psychological impact of Schwarber's presence at the top of the lineup cannot be overstated. Imagine being an opposing pitcher taking the mound for the first inning, knowing that the very first batter you face has the capability to put your team in an immediate hole with one swing. That mental burden affects pitch selection, it affects aggressiveness, it affects the entire approach to attacking the strike zone. Pitchers become more cautious, which leads to more walks, which puts more runners on base for the middle of the order hitters to drive in. The ripple effects of having Schwarber leading off extend throughout the entire Phillies lineup, making everyone more effective by proxy. Beyond his offensive contributions, Schwarber has proven to be an invaluable clubhouse presence whose leadership qualities might actually be more important than his on-field production. Veteran players have consistently praised his approach to the game, his work ethic, and his ability to keep the atmosphere light and focused even during the most stressful moments of a pennant race or playoff series. Young players have talked about how much they've learned from watching how Schwarber prepares, how he handles failure, and how he maintains his mental equilibrium through the grueling 6-month marathon of a baseball season. These intangible qualities are nearly impossible to quantify with statistics, but any successful organization will tell you that having the right personalities and leaders in your clubhouse is absolutely essential to sustained success. The Phillies' decision to prioritize Schwarber also reflects their understanding of what their fan base values and expects. Philadelphia sports fans are notoriously passionate and notoriously demanding, but they're also incredibly loyal to players who give maximum effort and embrace the city's blue-collar mentality. Schwarber has fit that profile perfectly since arriving in Philadelphia. He plays hard every single day, he engages with fans authentically, he participates in community events, and he treats wearing the Phillies uniform as a privilege rather than just a job. That connection between player and city creates enormous goodwill that extends far beyond baseball, turning athletes into beloved civic figures who represent something larger than just their individual achievements. From a business perspective, this contract also makes tremendous sense for the Phillies organization. Schwarber is a proven ticket seller and merchandise mover whose popularity generates substantial revenue streams beyond his on-field contributions. Fans buy his jerseys, they show up to games hoping to see him launch another bomb into the seats, they engage with social media content featuring him, and they create a buzz and excitement around the team that translates into higher television ratings and increased sponsorship value. When you factor in these additional revenue sources, the $30 million annual salary becomes more justifiable from a pure return on investment calculation. The competitive landscape of the National League East makes this signing even more critical when you consider how difficult it has become to maintain superiority in this division. The Atlanta Braves remain an absolute juggernaut with one of the youngest and most talented cores in baseball. The Mets, despite their off-season setback in losing Schwarber, still possess enormous financial resources and will continue to be major players in free agency. The Nationals are rebuilding, but have an extremely promising farm system that could produce contending teams sooner than people expect. The Marlins remain perpetually unpredictable and capable of playing spoiler. In this kind of environment, you cannot afford to lose key pieces of your championship core because replacing that production and leadership becomes exponentially more difficult and expensive. Some critics might argue that the Phillies are mortgaging their future by committing so much money to players in their 30s that they're creating potential financial inflexibility that could hamstring the organization later in the decade. These concerns aren't entirely without merit, as long-term contracts to aging players do carry inherent risk. However, this criticism misses the fundamental reality of modern baseball economics. Championship windows are finite and precious, and organizations that waste those windows trying to maintain financial flexibility often find themselves watching other teams celebrate championships while they sit at home holding on to their budgetary caution. The Phillies have decided correctly that winning championships now is worth more than theoretical future flexibility. Moreover, the designated hitter position provides some insulation against the typical age-related decline that affects position players. Schwarber won't be asked to play defense regularly, which means the wear and tear on his body will be significantly reduced compared to everyday fielders. His game is built entirely around his ability to hit the baseball hard, a skill set that historically ages better than defensive skills or base-running speed. Power hitters can remain productive well into their 30s as long as they maintain their bat speed and pitch recognition abilities. Given Schwarber's professional approach and dedication to preparation, there's every reason to believe he can remain an effective middle-of-the-order threat throughout this contract. The Schwarber signing also positions the Phillies perfectly for continued aggressive roster management in the coming seasons. With their core offensive pieces now locked down through long-term contracts, the front office can focus financial resources on other areas like starting pitching, bullpen reinforcement, and defensive upgrades. They don't have to worry about massive holes developing in their lineup because their best hitters are all under contract for multiple years. This stability allows for more strategic planning and roster construction rather than constantly scrambling to replace departing free agents or players who price themselves out of the organization's budget. Looking at comparable contracts around the league helps contextualize whether the Phillies overpaid or got reasonable value for their investment. Players like J.D. Martinez, Nelson Cruz during his prime designated hitter years, and Giancarlo Stanton when healthy have all commanded similar annual salaries for their power-hitting capabilities. When you consider that Schwarber provides that same elite power production while also bringing proven postseason success and clubhouse leadership, the $30 million average annual value starts to look like fair market value rather than an overpay. The Phillies aren't breaking new financial ground or setting precedents that will haunt them later. They're paying the going rate for an elite talent in today's inflated baseball economy. The reaction from the Phillies fan base has been overwhelmingly positive, with social media erupting in celebration as news of the signing broke. Fans who had spent the entire offseason anxiously refreshing their Twitter feeds worrying about losing Schwarber can finally breathe a sigh of relief knowing their favorite power hitter will be launching bombs at Citizens Bank Park for at least 5 more seasons. The collective anxiety that had been building throughout the winter about the possibility of Schwarber leaving for New York has transformed into jubilation and renewed championship optimism. This is the kind of franchise-altering move that galvanizes a fan base and creates tremendous momentum heading into spring training. The Philadelphia Phillies have made their statement. They've drawn their line in the sand. They've told the baseball world that they're going all in on this championship window, and they're not backing down from anyone, not even Steve Cohen and his seemingly limitless bank account. By retaining Kyle Schwarber on this massive $150 million contract, they've preserved the heart and soul of their clubhouse while simultaneously delivering a devastating blow to their biggest division rival. This is the kind of bold, decisive action that separates championship organizations from pretenders. This is Dave Dombrowski at his absolute finest, reading the market perfectly and executing a plan that keeps the Phillies at the top of the National League East hierarchy. So, what do you think about this absolutely massive move? Was committing that 5th year the right decision, or are the Phillies taking on too much long-term risk? Do you believe $150 million represents fair value for what Schwarber brings to this organization, or should they have tried to negotiate a lower number? How devastating is this for the Mets' championship hopes, and what should New York do now to fill their designated hitter void? These are the questions that will dominate baseball conversations throughout the winter and into spring training. Make sure you drop your thoughts and analysis in the comments section below, because we want to hear every single perspective on this franchise-defining transaction. If this deep dive into the Schwarber signing got you fired up about the upcoming season, then you absolutely need to subscribe to this channel right now so you never miss another breaking news update or analysis piece. Smash that like button to help this content reach more passionate Phillies fans like yourself. And make sure those notifications are turned on so you're always first to know when the next major roster move happens. We're here bringing you the most comprehensive, entertaining, and insightful Phillies content on the entire platform, and we can't do it without your support. The championship window is wide open, the roster is stacked with talent, and the 2025 season is shaping up to be absolutely incredible. Let's ride this wave together all the way to another deep October run. Go Phillies!